I bought this house for privacy, calm, and the small backyard garden I had dreamed about for years. I never expected HOA drama or Karen to find a way to ruin my peace. She's the kind of person who treats rules like they're her personal weapons. And she had somehow zeroed in on me. It started innocently enough. Small complaints about overgrown plants, garden decorations, and unauthorized landscaping. I ignored them. Most neighbors do. But Karen wasn't like most neighbors. She escalated quickly, claiming to enforce HOA standards even though I wasn't part of their organization. Then one morning, I noticed something strange. The backyard outlet I rarely use seemed to be running, lights on, humming softly. I traced the cord and realized that Karen had plugged her little power strip into it again. She'd apparently been doing this every day, claiming it was part of a community monitoring initiative to ensure no property was misused. She had no permission. She had no right. And I had no idea what she thought she was plugging in. At first, it seemed harmless, maybe a small annoyance. But something about the hum felt off. Over the next few days, I observed subtle signs. Sluggish water flow, strange smells, and the faint gurgle that hinted at something far more serious than a garden light or a phone charger. Karen kept plugging in her devices daily, oblivious to the fact that she was interfering with something far more critical than she realized. I researched the system and discovered the truth. The outlet she had been using was directly connected to the sewage pump for the backyard. Every time she plugged in her little devices, she was tampering with the pump, potentially causing backups, malfunctions, or worse. The realization hit me like a thunderclap. She had been unwittingly, though aggressively, threatening a major disaster. Karen thought she was controlling the backyard, asserting her HOA authority, and making me feel intimidated. In reality, she had just walked straight into my trap. One small action, one daily habit, and she was about to trigger consequences she never imagined. As I watched her stride across the lawn, cord in hand, blissfully unaware of what she was tampering with, I smiled. The stage was set. Karen was about to learn that some rules are not hers to enforce, and some power plugs are not for her to touch. Karen had no idea the backyard outlet she had been plugging into every day wasn't just a convenience. It was a critical connection to the sewage pump that kept the system flowing smoothly. For weeks, she had unknowingly disrupted the delicate balance, her actions a ticking time bomb. I had spent time observing, recording, and ensuring that when the time came, I could show not only her misdeeds, but also the consequences of her ignorance. It started with subtle signs, the slight gurgle in the pipes, the faint odor that lingered whenever she plugged in her devices, and the slow backup in the drainage system. I didn't act immediately. Instead, I documented everything. Each day, I noted her arrival, the time she plugged in her power strips, and the observable effects on the sewage system. Every cord, every plug, every hum of electricity was a testament to her relentless interference. Then came the morning I had been waiting for. Karen arrived with the same smug confidence, striding across the backyard, humming as if she were untouchable. I had already prepared the system to react safely, but visibly. A controlled diversion caused a minor, harmless overflow in a clearly contained area, just enough to show the impact of plugging in without permission. It was enough to make her stop, look around, and finally notice that her little daily ritual had consequences. Her eyes widened, a mix of horror and disbelief. She stumbled backward as the minor overflow became evident. Her community monitoring had been nothing more than sabotage, though entirely unintentional on her part. Neighbors, alerted to the commotion, stepped outside and witnessed her panic. The garden she had imagined controlling, the power she thought she wielded, had turned against her in a single, undeniable moment. I walked up calmly, making no sudden movements, letting her experience the realization fully. I explained step by step, The outlet she had used, the connections to the sewage pump, the potential for real damage if she had continued. Her face drained of color as she grasped the gravity of her actions. This wasn't intimidation. This wasn't a violation of HOA aesthetics. This was a genuine breach of private property and an accidental risk she had imposed on me and the household. For the first time, Karen had no words. The clipboard, the lists, the signatures, none of it mattered. Her authority crumbled instantly, replaced by the stark truth that meddling without knowledge can have consequences far beyond one's imagination. The neighbors, who had quietly observed her antics for years, murmured in agreement. Karen's overreach had been spectacularly exposed. She left, muttering apologies and threats that no one took seriously. The backyard returned to normal. The sewage pump hummed steadily, and the garden flourished, untouched by her interference. The lesson was clear, and the stakes had never been higher. Boundaries exist for a reason. Knowledge matters, and unauthorized power, no matter how persistent, can quickly become a liability. Karen learned that day that her attempts to control what wasn't hers were futile. Some plugs aren't hers to touch, and some consequences can't be ignored. From that moment on, she never returned to my backyard. The outlet stayed mine, the pump worked flawlessly, and my garden remained my sanctuary, a quiet victory over audacity, ignorance, and overreaching HOA power. Karen had no idea the backyard outlet she plugged into daily wasn't just a convenience. It was connected to the sewage pump. For weeks, her actions had been creating a ticking time bomb. I had documented everything, her arrival times, cords, and the subtle effects on the system. Each plug, each hum, every minor gurgle became evidence of her reckless interference. One morning, she arrived with the same smug confidence, striding across the backyard, oblivious to the risk she carried. I had prepared the system to respond safely, but visibly. A minor, controlled overflow in a contained area made the consequences of her actions undeniable. She froze, eyes widening, realizing that her daily community monitoring had been sabotaging my property. Neighbors, alerted by the commotion, peeked from windows and porches. Karen's power, once assumed absolute, evaporated instantly. She tried to regain composure, waving her clipboard, insisting she was enforcing HOA rules, but none of it mattered. I calmly explained the situation. The outlet, the pump, the potential damage, making clear that her interference was unauthorized and dangerous. Her face drained of color. The reality hit. Her authority was meaningless when applied to someone who knew their property rights. Her threats, signatures, and claims of enforcement held no weight. The crowd of neighbors witnessed the humiliation, and murmurs spread about the audacity of her actions. Finally, she left, muttering under her breath, defeated and exposed. The backyard returned to normal. The sewage pump hummed steadily, the garden flourished, and the outlet remained untouched. Karen had learned the hard way. Meddling without knowledge has consequences, and overstepping boundaries on private property is not tolerated. From that day on, she avoided my backyard entirely. My sanctuary remained mine, a quiet testament to preparation, ownership, and the power of patience. Some plugs aren't hers to touch, and some lessons can't be ignored. Karen had finally met her match. If a neighbor or HOA ever crosses boundaries, don't ignore it. Know your